I speak in the name of one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. I start with a disclosure. It is very hard for me to pronounce Sower. Okay? So I pray that whatever comes out of my mouth, you'll understand that that's what I am trying to say. If you can stay in that place with me, you're going to understand this homily. If not, I'll give you a translation. Meet me at my office. I was traveling this week, and when I travel, I download all this like non-thinking Netflix stuff, you know? I mean, I don't like a lot of actions movie because they stress me out. I just like to watch things that they mean nothing, right? I don't have to think. And one of those shows was It Is Cake. Have you seen it? It's very interesting. I mean, what they basically do is that they have all these like decoys, and they said, okay, a Bible. And then the person needs to bake a cake that looks exactly like a Bible. And then they have judges, and they have 4 Bibles, and one of them is a cake. And the judges need to identify which one is the cake and which one is not. And if the judges are wrong, the person wins. Well, the person wins up to $100,000. That's a lot of money. And on season 2, the lady who won, she won $90,000, which is pretty impressive. And that makes me think, if somebody comes to me and asks me, Jose, I have $100,000 to give you, what would I do with that money? So if somebody wants to give me $100,000, okay, and if you want to give me $100,000, I'm going to tell you what to do. I am going to ask you to make a church to Grace Church Woodlawn to the director's discretionary account. Because in that way, I don't have to ask the vestry what I want to do with the money. Start there, number 1, right? I thought about this on the plane. I thought a lot about it, right? Number 2, I will start doing things like I would love to do. Like, for example, I will probably spend money updating the kitchen, or I will like put a real good fence between us and our neighbors to avoid this tent that we have in the corner, or I would improve the signage of all the parking area that says no trespassing. Okay, like we're gonna call, this is a private parking, or I will be updating the administrative office and the library, or I will update the bathrooms, right? So they come to code, and maybe instead of having a male and a female, we just have 2 bathrooms which are gender neutral. Or I will just have you seen my office, that laminate that looks like wood? Maybe I will just cover all the floors of the next 2 buildings to look like that and upgrade the place. That's if I had $100,000. The reality is I do not know people who will give me $100,000. I know people who will give me $100, okay? Not asking, but $100,000, a little bit different, but it makes me wonder, why do people give? Do you know why do people give? I mean, what motivates people to come and say, I'm gonna put money here? 2 things. Resources, they need to have the money. And the second, intention. Resources and intention. And I think that this parable from Matthew is about resources and intention. It is the parable of the sower. It's a very simple one. You see, you've heard it before. And what is interesting about this parable is that it provides the explanation. You see, the seed was sown on a path, on a rocky ground, among thorns, on good soil. Only the one in good soil was able to grow and multiply. And then, and Jesus explains the parable in a way that the seed was the word of the kingdom, and the soil was the person receiving it. So it is kind of an invitation for us to be able to think about our lives today, and how do we deliver, right, the seed to the world around us. When we listen to parables, the idea of parables is a metaphoric story that helps us understand and apply it to the world we live today. So I think that when Jesus comes and explains the parable, He did the job for us. So what do we do with this? Okay, so we hear the parable and then we hear the explanation. But I think it's a little bit too quick if we just say, okay, got it, I'm in. So let's go deeper, just because we have the time. The first part of the reading, right, describes the parable. And the main character is the sower. In the second part of the reading, we have the explanation of the parable. And the main character is the people who receive the word of the kingdom. So somehow, between these two, there's a whole 11 verses in between those two parts in Matthew, right? But in those two stories we read, somehow there's going to be a bridge. Evidently, the sower is the most interesting character. In the story, the sower was a man who had abundant seed to sow. So much that he did not care about where he was sowing. He sowed everywhere. He had the resources to give, and his intention was to spread what he had to be given wherever he walked. The sower understood the importance of giving, and he was a good giver. And he had resources, and he had intention. And his intention was bigger than his outcome. If he was going to focus on the outcome, he would have planted the seed only in the good soil. However, he didn't do that. He didn't let the expected outcome to determine the extent of his giving. So he planted everywhere. It's a metaphor. Jesus is inviting us to keep on spreading the seed, keep on preaching the gospel and showing the compassion of the kingdom, and do it in ways we do not always know and in places we cannot always see. Perhaps because when we spread the seed freely and we spread the seed to all, we are reaffirming our belief that even now, even today, even in this conflicting world around us, the great harvest of God is growing, rich and full in the fields, in ways we cannot even understand, and in ways that sometimes make us afraid. The sowing we are called to do happens in the world around us, and building the kingdom is a communal task. We all have to work together on it and spread the seed to all. And as everything related to Jesus and to his kingdom on earth, it appears very easy to do from the outside. We say it all the time. We need to go and spread the seed of the love of God to all people. It sounds beautiful. But when it is time for us to do it, it becomes more difficult. I'll be honest to you, there are days I ask myself, do I want to share the love of God with those who I believe are not good soil? Sharing the love of God to those who I believe is their good soil, it's easy to do. It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel that I'm a really good pastor and priest. The challenge is, what do I do when the person in front of me does not promise me good soil? I heard a story from one of you, very recent, that touched me, deep touched me. This person was talking about a friend that she had when she was in college, and she was giving money to this friend who was a disenfranchised person, even when she knew that the person was going to use the money for drugs. So one day, the addict, right, realized that the person giving him money knew that he was using the money for drugs. So he went to the person and said, "You knew that I was using the money for drugs?" And the person said, "Yeah, I knew all along." And the addict said, "Oh, why did you give me the money then?" And the person said, "Because I care for you. Because I needed for you to know that somebody in this world cares for you." I am assuming the words of this person transformed the addict, because weeks or months later, the addict went into rehab and stayed clean. And this addict and this person were friends for more than 20 years until the person moved to heaven. What a great story of sowing in all places, even in the places we believe they are not good. As I face the responsibilities of the rector of this community, I face the challenge of wondering, how capable am I to spread the seed of God's love to all around me? This week, I have been asking myself, do I spread the love only to those I think are good soil? Or am I capable of being the sower who spreads abundantly and without focusing on a specific outcome? And I realize that the answer to those questions changes every day. And I also realize that I need all of you to help me be an all people, all inclusive sower. And you need all of us to be an all people, all inclusive sower as well. The other day, a brother with a manic schizophrenic episode spit at me in front of the door. 2 months ago, I got somebody telling me, "Jose, do something, a woman is running naked outside." This week, I tried to engage into conversations with the guys who were sitting at the steps of the chair of the church, right? And it smells like pot. And I was trying to engage in a conversation with them, and one of them became extremely defensive. I have not experienced that, but I have seen some of you being upset in the morning because you have to walk in and clean the feces of people which are on the steps of our church. 3 weeks ago, the children who we love of Grace Works removed the buttons of the seat. Listen, it is hard. Some days it is frustrating. It is hard. And perhaps that is the reason why you and I are here. Because we are the ones who were called to sow in the soil others do not want to sow because of fear of not being fruitful. Henry David Thoreau once wrote, "I have great faith in a seed. Convince me that you have a seed there, and I am prepared to expect wonders." I think the parable of the sower is about that, expecting wonders from the seed of God, and about us, about you and me. You and me are invited to fill our pockets with seed, with the gifts of the Spirit, so we can sow abundantly around us. We are the sowers. Through the abundance of God, we have received material and spiritual gifts. And because we have received, we are called to share with others, with the world around us. But we are called to share as part of our spiritual practice with the world around us. Sharing and giving is part of our spiritual being. Perhaps Paul said it best in his letter to Romans we just read. Are you living your life setting your mind on the things of the Spirit, or are you setting your mind in the things of the flesh? In other words, who is leading your spirit for sowing? Your ego or your God? Do you have enough seed to sow? Have you been equipped with seed that promises to flourish and enhance the kingdom? And how is the Spirit leading you to sow? Is the Spirit inviting you to sow freely into any type of soil? Or is the Spirit leading you to sow targeted in the soil you expect that is going to bring fruit? These questions might sound metaphoric to most, poetic to some, and challenging to a few. Nonetheless, these are the questions at the core of today's gospel, because today is the day when God is asking you to be the sower, and for you to define what type of sower you want to be. Amen.